everybody. Of course, Joe Gyurcsak, Blick Artists in Residence, U-Trucks. This has just been such a pleasure because Joe has, of course, been with us for the last two iHeart Plein Air events, and he agreed to do this. So, Joe, thank you so much for being here today.
You're welcome.
So we have, we're going to take a break at 1:15, right in those few seconds, just for like 5 minutes. Everybody can stretch, whatever. And but we're going to move through these, and we will have a hard stop at 2:30. I counted at one point, I think 42 paintings. So we have about, a couple minutes each once we get going. But I think we'd like to hear a little bit from Joe about what's going on, what he's looking at for his critiques, and so he'll share with us that. And then afterward, I am recording this, and I will send you all a link to today's recording, and so you can replay whatever parts. I actually was making notes last week and was glad to hear so much about other people's paintings. I learned a lot, actually. So I think that the recordings will be really helpful. So anyway, Joe, tell us a little bit about what you're going to be looking at. And when you think about doing a critique, what do you think about? And maybe you've even kind of looked at some of the paintings.
I did look at some of the paintings. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. I looked at some of the paintings, and all of them that were posted last night. I saw all those. I'm going to have an interesting perspective today that I do sometimes in my workshops. I like to share the ability to possibly revisit the painting that you worked on in another painting to see maybe possible a different composition, or maybe two different compositions, sometimes even three different compositions in paintings, because what I want to do is focus on a directed focus in the painting. I want the artist, I'll have some examples of my paintings that I'm going to show you, but to have a very, very strong subject or motif that's very apparent in the painting, so that you're when the viewer's looking at your painting, there's no guesswork. They could see the strength in that painting from a great distance. When you go into a museum, I think I said this the first time I did a demo with you guys, but you see paintings from a distance. The ones that are really striking, just kind of can call you from across the room. So we always need a really strong graphic, and I'm gonna start with sharing the PowerPoint of the. Can everybody see that?
Yep.
Okay, so you can even add more to this than what's on this screen, but this is a whole PowerPoint program that I use in different organizations at universities. I've done this lecture, so there's many parts to it, but this one segment is kind of towards the beginning, and it deals with the successful elements of design in painting, because we need it to be applied to what we're doing, right? So I've added to this a couple times already. I'm sure people will have even say, hey, you can add this other thing to it. But these are some critical things that are part of a good design in a painting. One of the things I learned from Skip Whitcomb, a Colorado painter, when I watched him do a demo, was the number one call out there, boundaries. And he thought this was vitally important, and he thought that the Asian schooling for boundaries on design were really a very important part of the past century painters. And I found that to be very interesting, because then after the demo that I saw him do, I went back and realized that Van Gogh was and Whistler were highly focused on the Asian prints and packaging paper and all this stuff because of the boundaries. He said that where things leave the edges of the painting are really important. So boundaries are really important. What is on the edge of the painting is a critical thing. The space, of course, that we're dealing with is we're trying to create a natural space within the dimensions of what we're working on. So we always have to be considerate of how that space will be. The number 3, the divisions, how you're going to actually divide that up. And then number 4 is the ability to, you as the artist, orchestrate a movement in the painting. So you want to create a way to move the viewer through it, a starting point, and then you slowly bring the viewer around the painting and maybe back loop. The best designs are the paintings that have the ability to keep you in an endless loop in the painting. And then point of view, like we talked about, we'll go over that as we go through the paintings, looking at a particular point of view. What is the thing that first attracted you to that subject? You have to really hold on to that throughout the painting and don't lose that idea. And then geometric shapes were really important too. One of the premier artists from the past, Cezanne, he always instituted the geometric shapes within the design. So it was really important. Those core shapes, circle, square, rectangle, triangle, those are really important. And you can really start to play with them in different sizes and different placement within the painting and see if you can really strengthen your painting by looking for connections like that. That'll really help you in that. The things I'm talking about, I just want to pull over on the side of the road for a second. It'll take you a lifetime to do all these things. I mean, we're learning every day about how to be a better designer, right? Some people have just a natural, innate ability to do it, but others really have to work at it because we have to maybe see a little bit better than maybe our initial sketch. We go out for a plein air painting, maybe we had an initial idea, but we come back. Sometimes I feel it wasn't as strong as I first saw it. I could have done this or that. Or the famous thing that I learned from illustration is to cut the painting down and then go revisit it again, either in my studio or go back out there and do another sketch and have another version of it. The rhythm of the painting can be, a lot of, you're going to hear me mention today the organic feel in a painting, especially when you're talking about landscape and not just the structural thing. We have to look for the natural rhythms in the trees, in what's going on in the ground, with everything with that. We'll get into that a little bit. And of course, the proportions is always important, and that involves some drawing and keeping things in the proper perspective. When something is out, you can't fake it. If the proportions are off, you may have painted something a little too large. It doesn't even have to be a trained eye. The person just feels it's unnatural. So we have to pay attention to those type of things. And the elements of contrast are really important. When we talk about value in a painting, and I know I said this to you guys, in my last demo I know I did there, I spoke about it for those that were there. The value design, it's probably better if you don't have too many value changes in the painting. The painting gets much, much stronger when you have less value changes. If you had like 3 or 4 main value changes going from, we talked about in my demo that I did there, a moderate light, moderate shadow, accent dark, accent light. The accent dark and the accent light are really the popping things, some really dark accent or some really light accent. And that really helps bring the elements of the contrast in the painting. And if you can unify your shadows and your light areas so that things are not jumping out of them, then we start to really get really good atmosphere, things going on that really feel, hey, this really works. I could see this in the sun. It really looks like something is going on there. And then one of the most important things that I learned probably about 10 years ago from C.W. Monday was variety and unity. The way that he kept it very simple, he's basically was saying, when you're painting those natural elements, there you have to have variety in them, yet they can be unified by the color, and we'll get into that when we go through the paintings, but you should have enough variety that it looks like a natural occurrence in the painting and not unnatural. What I see a lot of students do is be repetitive in the shape or the brush stroke, and then it starts to get too predictable, and then the painting starts to lose its power. So just be aware of those couple things, all right? Let me see if I can find one more slide. I'm gonna try to go through this. Okay, so this is something I use all the time, and I'm sure a lot of the artists that aren't here know this, but it's worth going over anyway. There's two really simple ways to start dividing up a space. It could be a rectangle or a square. It doesn't matter. But when you start thinking about the rule of thirds, it's very simple. You can divide that up. You see these key cross sections here are great places to put a really important part of your subject there. Say if there's a figure walking down the street or something and it's on this particular dot here, and then you can have a higher horizon, just say. I don't want to get into that too much, but and then the golden ratio is over here, and it's 1 times 1.68 if you want to be really technical about it. So it's 1, which is the measurement from the right to that vertical line going down, and then it's 1 and 1.6 across. So if you start to divide every which way 1 by 1.16, you'll get really critical lines of division, which let me just go to one thing here. I want to just show you this one slide here, and then we're out of the PowerPoint. This is Hopper, and so I mean, you can't get any better designer than him. Look at this painting. Look at how well our eye just goes to the woman leaning against the wall. Why? Because all the magic of that 1 times 1.6, he used that all the time in the dimensions of his painting and in the way that he divided the painting up. Look at this. Look at this section, like right there where her head is converging with this line right there. It's so powerful. And then he actually has such a strong division, but it's not right down the center. And it gives you an entryway into the movie theater, yet she's standing in the lit side of the hall. And he keeps the value structure very simple. I'm gonna stop sharing. I'm gonna get out of this, and then I'm gonna share again. And I'm just gonna go to a couple of paintings that I had in my recent article. Okay, so everybody could see that, right?
Yep.
So the challenge of this is a pretty big plein air painting in a competition in Gloucester, Virginia. I went out there early in the morning. I probably got to the farm about 7:30 in the morning. And I saw this immediately. And I was looking, before I was driving to Virginia, I was thinking about painting a fence in a painting. And when I saw this, the farmer said, "Do you want to go around and see all the things I have on the farm?" I said, "No, this is what I'm looking for." So he said, "Really?" I said, "Yeah, is it okay if I set up right here?" He said, "Yeah, but don't you want to see everything else?" I said, "No, this is it." So the biggest challenge for me in this painting was to see this morning light breaking through these trees.
Can you, by chance, Joe, can you double click on that to make it look larger? That we can see more of it?
Is that big enough?
I'm still seeing the thumbnails, and then and then we're looking at the one on the right with the.
Oh, you're not seeing this big painting?
No, we're seeing your selection of them.
Oh, really?
So we're seeing, there is over on the right, we see it. I'm just wondering if that could be made full screen.
Okay, wait, let me try it again. I don't know why that would. Can you see it now?
Yes, we can. Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I don't want to go too long on this, but the biggest challenge was to have that light traveling through the trees and having a way for the viewer to get back to this area of the painting. This is long standing light here where it was going to be lit for a long time. So I had to really deal with the way light was traveling through these trees and this path, because this kept changing. So I wanted to grasp this right away. So you could see the large shapes, like I talked about in my demo, they were all connected, all this shadow together, and then all this moderate light, and then it goes back in space. I don't want to keep going on these because then if we have time in the end, I'll go back to some more paintings.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, let's get into the,
So you're gonna have to, unshare and then go back to Facebook.
wait, did I unshare?
You did. So now let's just go back to Facebook.
Okay. All right, let me get.
Excellent.
So everybody can see it, right?
Yep. And Kuhn sent a message that he can't be seen, but he can be heard.
Okay. So this painting has a really nice line in here for the main subject. It's traveling through on an angle, and it's really nicely placed, so it's not too high up. It's really did a good job on creating a little bit angle on that main line going through the center. That could be really tricky. If that was flatter, it would fail. So it really works that way. I just think when I saw this painting yesterday, this could even be enhanced a little bit more if the as you travel back in space, the idea of this atmospheric perspective could have been a little bit more traveled a little bit more down here to actually make this transition from this middle ground to the background a little bit lighter, a little bit bluer, a little cooler. I think that would be the main thing I would actually adjust in here. Otherwise, I think the painting is pretty successful. It works. It reads really well.
Excellent.
Yeah, I mean, it's a nice job. When I look at things, I learned to let painting speak to me. This little bit of line here is a little bit tricky. I'm not sure what I would do with that. I might want to overlap that after I had cooled this down a little bit and overlap this tree to that line, because I don't want a little odd little spaces that really don't impact the painting to be a place where your eye would stop. Do you see that sharpness there? It's like letting the eye stop there. If this overlapped and that was a little bit cooler, then it might just flow to the background really easy. But that's my main critique for this particular piece. Good job.
Thank you.
Okay, so now this painting has a lot of nice atmosphere. It has the traditional U-shape design in it. And I did look at this yesterday. Wait, let me see. Annotate. Let me see if the yellow was set up. So now this painting is one of those paintings that could be revisited. I would go back and you know, look at that painting and actually take some of that foreground out. Let me clear that. I'm going to go back. I'm going to even go up a little bit higher. Let me see if I can draw a straight line. Okay, so if you put your hand on the bottom part where that yellow line is, everybody, you look at that, that's a much more improved painting because there's not much of the subject here that really needs to be discussed as far as in paint. There's nothing here that's really that important. All the action is up there. So let's make that what the painting's about. And all of a sudden, that painting becomes way more powerful to me just by that one move. So I don't know if this is on a panel. I don't know if Sharon, Shannon, you ever cut your paintings, or you just want to redo a painting? I don't know how large it is, but I would revisit this to do it again. I do paintings over and over many times sometimes for the subject, but I really love it. I love the atmosphere and everything about it. I just feel like that is just such an easy fix to go back and do that, and then you're on your way with that. Does that make sense to everyone?
Good.
Okay. Now, should I clear them every time?
Yeah, clear it, because that line will go with you to the next one. So clear it, and then when you change it.
Oh, wait.
See? Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay, so, oh, that was the subject for, okay, so, yeah, if we were gonna put it in like this, that's a whole different story, but it's not like that. So listen, it's our personal interpretation of it too, and this works really well this way, but I certainly, if this is the way that the painting is going to wind up, I would definitely opt to cut some of the painting down, unless you're going to revisit and try to enhance all this in here. And this is a really good part. I don't want to take too much time on each one, but Soroya was really good at this. This is where that moderate shadow glow is in. You can't go too dark with these shadows. It's very close to the light, but yet it's dark enough to say that it's in the moderate shadow part. You don't want to go too dark with this if you're going to try to attempt to paint this. And you have to learn, you have to delineate some of the subject matter in the front, all these little darks to really make this thing come alive. So that would take a little bit of time, but definitely could revisit it that way as well.
Great.
Okay, so this is the image, I mean the reference, and then this is the painting, right?
Yep.
Okay, so I really love the tone of the painting, but it's just this part here. You could see my mouse going over, right?
Yes.
Okay, so this part here is really just an eyesore for me. So I would opt to mute that and take that color much more down, get that heavy tone of the blue out there. It's too concentrated and it's too saturated, I should say. So we should just desaturate that and make it more neutral. And this will really work much better in that space. This is one of those paintings where we could actually have two different paintings going on. Let's see if the yellow works in there. We can actually have, oops. It's not so easy to draw with this, you know.
Sorry.
We can actually have a painting, you know, like that, you know, within here, that could be one painting. And then I'm going to switch the color on this so that it's a little better. And then we also have another interesting painting. And I love to do this because I did this in one of my workshops and people got so excited to go back the next day and do more paintings. So this is a really nice painting here, right in there. And so you can actually go back and do 2 different paintings or cut the painting in half, whatever you want to do. But it's just giving you some ideas, like don't treat these things too precious. Go back and, go and revisit them. This is really, I really love this composition because it really sends you back here really nice. And this is gorgeous, all this work that was done in here. So there is a couple options there. If you were to leave the painting as such, then I would just tone down that door.
There you go.
Okay.
We're probably running a little slow.
Okay. Okay, so this painting, what the main thing that I saw when I first looked at it were these 3 verticals. I love the personality that's coming out in the painting of the person's style, their voice, but I would definitely do something to make these a little bit more a little bit more organic looking instead of so straight, so that they don't compete with this pole here. We get this, that it's under the porch, and then we're looking out there. All that needs to happen in this painting right now is to modify these trunks so that they're a little bit more organic looking, because you have these 2-3 lines really strong right in the middle, and it's just calling me to that area. This is a little heavy here too. You could lighten the value of this, because you don't want this to compete with this value here. You see this in the background? You don't want that to be so deep that it competes with this dark up here. We get that this is in the foreground, so some of these darks back here could be lightened so that it makes it go back in space. This painting I really love, and they had a lot of nice things going on. The glow from the nocturne light, the fountain, the whole scene is good. I'm just a little bit questioning this opening here. I'm not sure what happens. Is there a photo for this one? No. So I wasn't sure what happens with this. Is the water flowing out of the fountain to somewhere else here?
Well, I know there's a bank there. I just didn't put it in because I don't want it to make it too contrasty.
Yeah, I would actually, again, it's only my comments, you could take them or leave them, but this line, I would just bring all the way out because it's confusing to where the water stops. I would just bring the line out, and I would not have these values so light here for these windows. And I get it,
Yeah.
They're probably reflecting, but I would tone them down because you want everything to go here. I love the abstraction of the figures, and I love everything that's going on here. This is not easy to capture. It was really well done. That part of it really feels really nice. But also just the water, make it again, variety and unity. You have the variety of whiffs of all the water pouring, but you have to do a little bit more observation on the way the water is falling, because all these definite, really straight lines could be varied a little bit more so that it just doesn't read so predictable like that. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
There is a photo for that one.
Okay, so this. Okay, so if that is the light that I'm trying to capture, and I was standing in that field, I would look for this totally dark pattern, and I would paint that, and that would be the bigger part of my painting. Let me see. So I think the red will work here. So we can come across, ooh, my little mouse, he doesn't want to work. So I come down, and we can really try different things. I'm not sure. I mean, this is live. I'm just taking a shot at this. I want to see, does that help the painting or not? it definitely brings my focus to this story here, the tractor. And now all of a sudden that got a lot stronger. Maybe a little bit higher for the tree, but I don't think you need all of this space up there. I don't think you need all that presented to make it work. But it's a nice lead in this way with the tree and then the tractor there. I would go back and try to, wait, let me clear that. Go back and revisit this. Oh, at that time of the day, or at that time of the day, or not, you know, different times of day. See if this comes alive in a different way as well. That's why, you know, we think we paint something one time and we're done with it. No, I revisit an abandoned farm. I keep revisiting it. If we have time in the end, I'll show you a couple paintings from that. But I keep revisiting it because there's a lot there, and you see it different at a different time of day, in the different light, the different season. So all these things can be revisited again, and possibly different palettes of color can even be tried with them too. This painting really has a Hopper feel to it. Wait, there was no reference for that one. But yeah, I really like this, the feel of this painting. It really captured the essence of, you know, that kind of nocturne feeling. And the only thing when I first saw it were these 3 lines. This here, this can be modified to even get a little bit more faint, this line, and definitely these. They're hard, sharp lines. And if you lower the value on these lines and make them a little bit softer, like the way I was taught, if you have a way out into the sky from this, like just kind of break it a little bit, make it a little bit not so hard edged, at least let your eye travel around here, because all this is really beautiful and we want to keep the person really in this area. This is just supporting stuff, so it's a little bit strong. I would just lighten it, make it a little bit darker value. And maybe even this too. I just, you know, take it down just a little bit. It's a subtle change for this, but these hard lines can be softened a little bit and really enhance this effect, because this is really beautiful in here. And it's a nice composition too. And rules are made to be broken. It goes right down the middle, but it works. This painting holds together, so it's good. Good job. This, I think it had reference, right? Okay, yeah. So this is a lot to, even for me, to as a painter, to digest, for to paint. I would probably figure out where I really want the focus of this to be, because I'm looking at this scene and I love it. I mean, it's a gorgeous photograph, but sometimes these photographs, the way that they translate to a painting, need a little bit modification. So you could come in here and just revisit this, you know, to make it a little bit elongated scene. I'm just giving you different ideas. Now all of a sudden the sky is really gorgeous with that cloud, and then what happens here with the flowers as they fall down into the scene like that. I mean, it's a beautiful photograph to begin with as a reference, but you could crop down on this and make it a little bit more important to the building and a little bit less of this information. It's a lot there to paint. For me, I would definitely simplify it, in my opinion. So yeah, if you just simplified some of this and really look at the values again, everything in this painting is getting a bit moderate. So you need to look at that light in that scene and really push some stuff. because these are really moderate shadow. When we go back to the painting, these lights here feel a little unnatural in the flowers. When I look at that, I'm looking at that, and it has to be looked at again, because this is warmer light going on here. That's being in the photograph, and I don't know if if Elizabeth was actually in the scene, like she was standing there looking at that and took a photo of this, but this is definitely projecting warm whites, and we don't have that in the painting. We have these very cool lights in here, and this spot here is really heavy. So it has to be looked at from several points of view. I would revisit it, try to deal with some of those things if you want to keep working on this particular painting. The foliage, this is what I was talking about before. Do not get into the mode of repetition over and over and over and over again, because it just shows up unnatural. You have to look for variety, and you have to make your brush strokes different, the size of the shapes different, the tones slightly different, so that starts to read a little bit more natural. Maybe take a little bit less of a scene and really work on that skill set, because that takes a while to do anyway. Look, I'm still trying to learn how to do that.
So Joe, I just got a chat that said if you hold down the shift key while you're trying to draw a line, that it will help you be straight.
Oh, okay. This painting reads really well. It brings you back into space again. Really nice. It has a lot of open area here. So was there a reference with this? No. Okay, so for me, it just needs a little bit more pathway to get back there. Something has to show. It just can't disappear like that. And this really has to be reevaluated, this whole block. It works, but it's kind of like, what's the point of doing this whole area? Like, what are we going to do in this area that makes it work with the rest of the scene? Because I'm going to tell you, Tom, this is painted really well. Beautiful here, the sky, everything reads really, really well. I almost feel like, oh, it needs like, wait. Okay, now if I hold this shift key.
Let's see.
It didn't do anything. Oh, God. I see. So you could put points. But if it, I'm just going to, I don't know if I feel.
Crooked lines are fine.
This needs like even like a post or something here. See, like, I don't know. I mean, I'm just saying something here to break this space up a little bit. You know, okay, this is a great, I could go on and on about these things once you get me started. But when we're painting outside, I learned to do this in my own plein air paintings. If I had a scene like this and I felt like, oh, it needs something else, I start looking more beyond the scene for what I can pull in and put in there. Now, some people say, no, that's not authentic or this, that. But listen, at the end of the day, we're trying to get the painting to work. So if there was something that you could see from like turning 360 around and see if something else could be added to here, you know, a little maybe farm equipment or something, would really send the painting into another level because it's painted really well. Okay, so, oops. Okay, so this has good variety and use of color. I love the moderate tone. It does feel like winter. Jane, you did a nice job on that. And I like the way everything moves around here. This spot is not working so well for me. I would really revisit that. All this here, as soon as I see it in my mind, this doesn't have a photo with it, right? Okay. So this reminds me automatically of Wyeth. Like I see Wyeth in there. And I say, well, if he did it, he probably wouldn't maybe put this tree in there. Maybe he would take the space and wait, oops. He would maybe, what, oh, maybe bring it down. Maybe just takes a little bit of that out of there, just a little bit. And then really, this is beautifully done. And this is not easy to do. And it really reads really nice. So this to me is like a conflict in the painting. It's fighting for this heavy dark spot when you have all this beautiful work in here. I want to look at this, but then I keep going over here. I don't want to do that. That's the way I feel about that. So I always go with my intuitive feeling. I would just revisit this and see if I could soften that, because this is so subtle. It's really beautiful. I got to take a drink of water. Hold on. Okay, so that's what I would do there. I would revisit.
You guys, excuse me, hold your chats because they're a little bit, they're distracting. Your comments, hold them to later.
Okay, so again, this is the very thing that we were talking about in the beginning to be aware of. This works really well. But this here, the three trunks, all the same size, all the same treatment basically, and it starts to be too predictable. Nature is not predictable, so it has a lot of variation in it. So we have to look. There's not a photo for this, is there? No. Okay, so we have to look for the variety, yet have a unity, and figure out how we're going to work on this part here, because this reads really well. I don't know about the size of this proportion. Remember we talked about proportion. I'm not so sure about the size of this shape here. And this is all about a painting working, no matter what it is, the reference. If we have nothing to look at but this painting, we have to make this painting work, right? So this shape is a little big here, yet this is, I keep going to this part because this is painted really, really well. Even this stuff down here is painted really well. This is a little bit hard of an edge here. I don't want to see something that hard taking me out this way to that area. It's a little heavy here. So I would lighten that. I would revisit the size of this and oops, focus on that, Julie. Focus on these trees, how you can manipulate them, maybe do another piece like that. But I love the trail, and this is the best part of the painting. And that's not easy to do. You did a really good job there. These two trees, it's kind of like, okay, if you remember my demo when I talked about it, this has to find a way to connect with this shadow stuff here. Even if you saw that line, there's no photo, is there for it? No. Okay, so no. This somehow has to connect with this stuff here. It's not doing that. It's just a big, heavy line going down here, both of these strips. I'd like to see some of that broken up. I think some of this in nature would be revealing some branches that connect it, like on the shadow part to it. Barbara, you understood the shadow, the way that it goes from dark to light when it's closer to the object and it goes away. That's all working. But the way that it's kind of divided here, I feel like even this tree back here could be part of the shadow, a little bit more there if you're going to leave it that way. What I do really love about this painting is this particular part in here is really, this part right in here is really nice, the way that was rendered. It's really good the way that was broken up, and like we talked about, the variety, but then its unity. It really feels like those trees back there. It's done really nice on that.
Thanks. I do have a the original, the photo in, but I had added in comments on Facebook. I don't know if you can see it.
I don't.
Why don't you read them, Barbara?
Pardon me?
What did you want to read them?
No. The original, the photo, I did put the reference in, but I added it in comments,
I see.
but not again in this one. So you might be missing it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
We can't see it.
We can't.
Okay.
Okay,
Sorry.
but anyway, and this little bit of shadow here, I just realized that too. This light here would probably not read like that. It's kind of odd how the shadow would be casting over here. So it's either all around back or nothing at all, but it wouldn't cast a little bit there and then over here. So, you know, even if you saw that in the photo, you have to be aware of these little things that pull your eye into places you don't want them to go. Okay?
Okay. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Sorry if I told you that to put them in comments.
This is really wonderful painting, Dorothy. Beautiful painting, great design. Talk about the edges. We talked about that. The edges for the painting. This is really good. The proportions, different size, different variation. I really feel like this is a really successful piece. It worked really well there. As far as the design, I love the variation of it. It reads really pretty sound. Maybe you could look at a little area in here. You see these stems here. What's going on here? I'm not sure, but a lot of this painting, I like the color choice, the way it was presented. Is it a watercolor? Maybe. It looks like a watercolor, but I like it. That's probably all I would be looking at, is if you could look at to see if there's some little stems or something that could be.
It is a watercolor.
It is a watercolor. Nice job on that. How big is it?
It's I don't know. It's about 6 by 8 or 10, something.
Yeah.
Pretty small.
You did it from life.
Yes.
Okay, good job. This I really felt was successful. Here's a perfect example of when we photograph our artwork, we have to really make sure that we're not bleaching out anything, because I know this is a better painting than the way it looks, because this is bleached out here. I recommend you putting it on an easel and having a fluorescent light over the top if you're using a cell phone. The fluorescent warm and cool bulbs, when you use your iPhone or smartphone, they take really balanced pictures like that. I get really good shots like that. But this painting reads really good. It's a nice design. It's very intriguing the way it is. I just think it's really successful. My family and I were looking at these last night, and I said the main comment was the photograph could be better to show off the painting, because it's a nice job. I love the design of it. I love all these angles. I love the divisions where it is. It's a really nice composition. Good job.
So Joe, will you please repeat that about how to take these photos?
Oh yeah, in my studio, if we were able to go out there, but I can't. I have a fluorescent light hanging over my easel, and I realized that I have a bank of them. I have three cool lights, natural. You can buy the natural fluorescent bulb, and then I have one warm light on purpose to bounce, so it's not too blue. And that really steady, muted light is all I need to photograph my paintings. You know, the painting that you saw before, I photographed these under that light, and they're so balanced, it captures it perfect for the iPhone. It really works well. So if you have fluorescent lights, which is a one maybe warm bulb and three cool ones like I did, you really get a nice setup to photograph these things.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, so now this had reference. I remember it because I was saying in my own head, why didn't this person paint that The way they saw it with the house behind it. I love that back there. And I love, if everybody would squint their eyes down, please, how all the shadows, the wall and the tree merge and the building merge. It's very soft there because the valleys are very close together. This is actually a really interesting painting, the way it was photographed of the reference, to actually go forward and try to do that. But in the painting itself, wait, which way did it go? Oh. We really deviated from that idea. And I know the person, Christine, was focused on maybe doing the tree. That's fine for a study if you're going to do that. But it would be, as far as a painting, a much better idea if you would revisit this, please, and do a painting with that house back there and the trees, the way they're foiled on the edges here, where the darks go out. A classic painting, Hudson Valley and all the great painters, if they always say, make the dark corners. If you make these corners dark, wait, when I go up there, kind of, okay, so you can actually have a pretty strong painting if the values, like I'm going over here with the pointer, if the values of the tree and the fence merge, and it almost becomes a little bit more abstract. I would attempt to do this painting again, revisit that painting and do it again like that.
Okay.
This, again,
It appears much lighter than it is actually.
Yeah.
Much darker.
I'm not a broken record when I'm saying this, because we all have to work on this constantly. Mm-hmm. We have to really look at the foliage. We have to look at the trees. All this treatment is very similar. And in nature, it varies greatly. And we have to look for those changes. Sometimes they're subtle. Sometimes they're very different. But the weight of these branches are too similar. So you got to look at that, and also the treatment of this. This takes a while to get for everyone that's struggling with that. And when you do figure drawing, I equate figure drawing and trees to the same, because painting the human form and painting trees are very hard to do, and they take a while. It took me quite a few years to be able to do better trees outside. It just is a hard thing to do because you have to really observe those spaces. The best way to do it is squint your eyes and look at those big shapes and trust painting those big shapes for the value and the shapes that they are, and you'll get closer to what you want to do. Mm-hmm. The thing is, we start looking into little areas and then we get totally distracted, and we start using the same brush in the same way, and then it gets too predictable. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so this has a photo. And I think the painting works pretty well. And I go back to the photo that Susan actually had here. I love this. And I would actually if it was me, I would try to paint this again and try to get all of this in here, because I like the way that the composition is with the 1, 2, 3, 4 spots of that color, and the way that they're angled. See them? Really beautiful. And then look, this comes back. And this comes around, so it just really makes for a beautiful, this is a great piece of reference. And what needs to happen is when you're looking into this foliage, the leaves down here, you really have to delineate those shapes very carefully, because they do matter. All the great painters in the past, that's their ability. When they got the broad strokes, then after that, the next thing they did was really delineate, and the size of these shapes, how big they are, the darkness, because that helps define what you're looking at. and you need more of that in there. You did capture the light up here and the sensation of light all up here, but down here, I don't know if the painting got cropped. Maybe it's bigger than what it is, but I would revisit that again. Do it again. The more times you do it, you can't go wrong. You're always going to get better and better at these things. So just it's not a bad painting at all. It's got a lot of nice things going on, but I would revisit for the plants, you know, the vegetation on the bottom. This I really loved, and here's the case where we have, okay, let's try to do that.
There's a second one too. I'm not too sure what.
Oh,
that one doesn't.
Brilliant! Look at that. Okay, so now look, when we Dina, when we cut out some of this foreground, there's not much of a story here anyway, so it's a lesson for all of us. I've done it a million times. It's the things I'm talking about to everyone is that we all do these things and we all have to be aware of them. But when you have a fresh eye looking at it, it's easy for me to come in and say whatever I want. I mean, you know, because I'm just seeing it fresh. This sky is so beautiful, and it's downplayed because of this, so much this foreground surface is not really needed there. So when we cut this painting down, and if everybody puts their hands by that red line and looks at the painting, look at how great that painting looks now. If you just cut that painting down. So today's lesson is about scissors and knives and cutting things down. But really, that sky is beautiful. And was this done in oil, acrylic?
Yeah, this is oil, and the lesson also for me is this green. I put in my comments, it was one of those days where that grass was just that flat Kelly green with no variation.
Yeah.
And I struggled. I put a path in one of my samples too, trying to make something more interesting there. But I agree with the cutoff. But
that is the work you did. That is not the story we're talking about here. If it was about that green and the barn and everything, it would be more on the bottom. That would be more of your painting. But this sky is so gorgeous.
Thank you.
It's worth doing that. I don't know if this is on a panel or whatever.
Yeah, it's a panel.
Yeah, it's worth chopping it because it looks great like that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so wait, were there two of them?
Yeah, I sent one with a path and I.
Oh, okay, I got it. Yeah. Well, that helps. Yeah, that definitely helps. But still, well, that does change it. Now you're really messing me up. Okay, now, yeah, that does work. That's a good solution. But I like to see this a little bit more raggedy, maybe even get a little wider down here if you're going to pull that off. That does work, though. It does work. I can't argue with it. You made it better. So that's good. But I love the other crop as well. Okay, so this story is about, Deborah, this story is about the tree. I think that's your main focus. So if that is your main focus, then I would play down some of this background color here. I would definitely maybe show a little bit more distance to the buildings in the back. Do you have reference? Wait, let me see. No. Okay. So again, this is a very curvy, stylized tree. I don't know the tree type, but again, this gets into a predictable kind of line making process of the tree. And I think it probably had more variation than the way it looks there. There's some beautiful transitional tones to it, but it still can use variation in the way that things end. I wish so much I could show you guys, like, you know, if you take your brush a certain, like you're on an angle and you drag your brush out with the paint on it, it already makes it kind of like really natural looking that way. So I would just revisit this subject again to maybe look at that in different kinds of light and keep studying the trees. Like I told you, it takes a lifetime to do it. This stairway behind this too is a little bit, it's just, I look for odd shapes. When I'm being a judge at art events and stuff, I look for things that pull my eye to an area in an odd way. This is this little space in here by the trunk and the stairway, and then this just shape here. Do we really need it? Do we really need it? This is where editing comes. You might want to take some stuff out in the future, like really look at that, you know. And we have, wait, okay, it goes down a little further. Wait, okay. So it goes down further there. Yeah, and the problem with ending, you have 4 crops there. One of the things I learned in illustration early on was only make odd number crops, either 1 crop edge or 3. It's not a certain rule you have to live by, but it would sure be nice if you had a little foreground in there.
Joe, I don't understand what you're talking about with crops.
Okay, so you know, we're talking about edges, right? So this tree doesn't have, it doesn't go into ground at all. There's no ground for that to go into, so it's not rooted. That's fine, but then there might be an area where the right side of the painting, none of the branches would go out of the frame, right? Because then you'd have 3 cropped edges. You have the top, the tree goes out.
Got it.
The tree goes out to the left, and the bottom's crop. But when you do all 4 sides as a crop, it kind of really changes the whole dynamic of looking at the perspective of what you're looking at, because there's no reference point to any kind of ground or, you know, any kind of open space beyond it. It's kind of all the way in there. This usually works if it's buildings, but when it comes to nature, like this really needs to have a piece of ground to go into or something.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so this painting, I love this storefront. It reminds me of like the way Whistler did some of his watercolors and stuff, that just real simple read on that, Bobby. That's a nice job on that. My biggest comments for this painting is the color pop in these areas. Here's a painting, here's a perfect example of a painting where we say, what is this story about? Is this story about the storefront, or is it, if it is, why am I distracted by looking here or up here? Because these colors are a little hot. They have a little too much intensity in them. They have to be played down. If they're played down, let's see if we could do it. Let's see. If we pick a blue, let's see what we could do. So if we play this down, and we, come on, Joseph, you could do it. And we play this down.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. Right? And then if we say, well, we could afford to lose a little bit of the foreground too. And maybe we could lose a little bit of the top. Oops, where'd it go? It starts to become a more interesting story. We could cut it all the way down here, you know, oops, all the way down, leave this right, well, maybe a little sky over there, but then this is not so centered. It's a little bit off center. Or we could just say, forget about that. And we could just focus. This is actually interesting now. Look at the storefront, and now this here, this whole part of the painting. is now really the focus, right? And it becomes much stronger of a painting. So, Bobby, you can revisit this idea either in a sketch or another painting, but look at that, because this is really wonderful, the way it's rendered in here. And you're not really appreciating it because of all this intensity of color right now. You're not getting that. So that needs to be revisited. Okay, so now this painting really has the glory of the light coming from the top. It's Steve's painting, of course. He's a very good painter. But I just, if I would tweak this a little bit more, I like the atmosphere back here that you started to get with the trees in the distance there. I would probably just push this back a little bit further, but I love the way that this kind of brings you into, oops, wait, let me get out of there. I keep closing up that. I like the light that's coming down and how it travels down from the top to the bottom of the painting, that beautiful glowing light on the top, and then it's kind of dappled on the bottom there. It really feels really nice there. An idea maybe to visit, I don't know, is some kind of, sometimes I just put little, that might be a little too bright, but I put sometimes little shapes in the background just to create a balance a little bit, like that's a little too loud, but I do play around with stuff like that. In fact, I have a painting. I don't know if we're gonna have time in the background, but I have a painting behind me, a shed that I did with a tree. Reminds me of this a little bit, and I loved it. I was at the end of a workshop, and I try to capture that really quick because the light was going away. But those are the couple little tweaks I would do.
Good, thanks, Joe.
You're welcome. Okay, so this is I know this had reference because I saw it. So this is a learning, Sandra, learning to do perspective and really trying to grapple with that. It might be a little bit easier if you bit off a little bit less. Like if you were looking at this again, let me see. If you maybe took, a smaller piece of that, and you tried to grasp this in here, the angles, how they're going back in space, and you have like a solid structure, a dark arch, and then a light arch. It's actually a nice photograph as it is, but if your main focus was the building anyway, so again, let me just clear that and go back one. Again, this had a little bit of the water in the foreground, but you can have angles going on, but when the bottom of the building is angled going out of the frame like that, it creates an odd read to the painting. So you might want to try it again and level off the bottom a little bit and then make the angles more on the roof and stuff like that. But I like the fun in here of the drawing, and it certainly can be revisited again. Look to push your shadows much more, make more contrast, because I think that's where you're getting very moderate here in all of the treatment, and therefore nothing is really has greater importance than the other. So you have to make some areas that are stronger in contrast.
Thank you so much. Everything I do for fun, and it has a personality. That's why that's all lopsided. But great, thank you so much.
You're welcome. this painting I was looking at, wait, there was reference? No. Okay.
There's
so,
another one. There's one. There you go.
yeah, this painting, I thought it worked well, but it needed, I would actually, behind here, I would remove this person because I don't think that's really helping the painting. This is about this painter in this scene. So if that's what it's about, I don't need the distraction of a person on the edge there, really, Jim telling me like the person is there. I would opt to bring the value down behind this, especially where it meets the coat and the hat, so that that would produce even greater effect for this figure to pop forward away from the scene a little bit. This figure is painted really well. It's really interesting, but it merges into the background too much for me. I don't want it to merge that much. So that's how I would separate that. I like all of the read of the painting, but I would maybe a little bit cooler back here so that it just goes back in space. And this is again, not so organic looking. Like he did all this work. I know you can render, but here, I'm going to use the word because I use it on myself. I say, Joseph, don't get lazy. So you have the ability to render. Here, you really had to look at this better and render this a little bit more, because I have a feeling it's not reading that simple, like that kind of a pattern like that. Knowing that you can do all this, you could generate a little bit better shadow there on that part. This painting is, there's some really striking things about it. It really has great modeling in there, Maureen. You have really nice modeling in the foreground and in the background. And the story is, it's like, what are we trying to say here? Is it about this or is it about this? Because I'm finding the struggle between the two. And if this is really the case that you wanted all these to be part together, I would definitely opt to, oh, let me try and move that. I would opt to put the goslings all further up by the tree and take away some of this big lawn space again. Because this is really, really well rendered up there and down here, but they're really two separate paintings in my opinion. They can be two separate. If you want to join them together, it's fine. But I see, you know, again, I mean, it just makes people realize this exercise, you know.
I was kind of trying to make.
Yeah, I mean, this could be a painting, and then this whole thing could be a painting. And if they're going to be together, then I would opt to revisit this and move a whole a grouping of them closer to trees. Then you're going to have to be really concerned about the value treatment, because this value treatment on the whites here is identical to this. This is for everyone. When you're painting trees, you have to at least have three. It's not a fixed rule, but it really helps you if you have three value changes in your trees. This has basically two, so you could add another one. I have a feeling when you get down here a little bit, there could be a slightly different value change or temperature change, something, just so that it really shows up. But I totally get it. I totally get the way that you did it, but could be two separate paintings. Okay, yeah, this is that painting again. So there, this fellow can be deleted out of there. These, when this dark value is around here, it will really, if it goes even up to here, it'll make that figure really pop. This is beautiful down here, all that stuff. So in this painting, the tree trunk here is a little bit, again, unnatural. and I was just looking, I have a painting here called Jersey Pine, and maybe I can show that one to show how the foliage and the branches could be painted. But anyway, just this needs a little more work going on in the painting. So I go and focus on this because it's such a big spot in the painting, and it needs a little treatment there. And also this line here is really heavy, this line here. So I'm not so sure where the light is reading from for this in the scene. Because I have shadows going this way too. I have shadows going from the right to the left on the tree trunks, but then I have a shadow going the opposite way on the lawn here. Or if that's a path or something, I'm not sure, Ann. But that maybe, not maybe, it needs to be lightened somewhat. It's a little heavy, that line. Also, the light holes in the tree areas, again, watch this stuff that's going on here. These are very similar sizes. Be careful, because we all get into that. We start doing something, we do it over and over and over. We really have to look for those shapes. You probably don't need as many light holes going through the trees, but you need variety in them. Some of these are good, like these are believable, but then some of them get really predictable. Okay.
Great.
So this one, I think there were several photos of it.
Just choose one.
Okay.
That's the reference.
Okay. So.
This is a work in progress. I haven't finished it yet.
Okay.
So yeah, just choose one of them to talk about, Joe.
That's the reference.
That's the reference. So when I look at it, the tone, if it's a work in progress, this is a very interesting muted tone with a little bit of accent light on it, and it's a very delicate painting. And these rocks, like even this rock down here, feels like it's they're not weighted down into the water. They feel like they're floating. So they need to, I know it's a work in progress, but keep working and try to find a little bit more grounding into that, like darker water around it, and manipulate some of that. And it has, a critical thing with rocks meeting water is where you have these little, on the edge, you have a little bit of light, a little highlight of water touching around the rocks. That's really critical. You see these little areas here, you have to really pay attention to that. This is wet up here on this pointy one, and it has a very particular shape, which is nice. Compositionally, it's very abstract. And I don't know if that's the intention, but if you wanted to make it more representational, you might want to, again, look at another possibility of the way that you would divide that up again. Maybe you would only take a smaller part of this, and I don't know, maybe break it up somewhere like that. I'm just kicking around ideas. I don't know. I'd have to spend a lot more time with this. But right now, because it's such a subtle painting in so many ways, it really has to be observed, because you have these really dark darks, and then the lights, and these little touches of, changes of water, shadows and subtleties going around it. It's good that paint. I would like to see that painting later on. You could email it to me. but I like to see how you progress with that.
Yeah, I like the circle of the composition. To me, it looked like a circle of rocks, just kind of accidentally. And I just kind of like the relationship of them going round and round and kind of talking to each other.
Yeah, no, that's there, but the I don't know if it's the photo, but the way the water's reading now is it has to definitely, the tones have to change, and you really have to dial in if you want to match that kind of light that was on it. You have to go back and look at the palette for that and mix it. I don't think as warm. It's a lot cooler. You see it?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a lot cooler. Okay, so this painting, Marcy, when I'm looking at it, again, it's a lot to take in. You have to really figure out what part, I guess, you really want to highlight, and that would be, to me, this little bench area, resting area, where you're kind of drawing the eye to. The sky is really nice. It really feels well. It's moving really nice behind there. I think overall, I don't know if it's the photo, but it's very violet. The whole painting is consumed with this violet color, and we need to neutralize some of that. So we need to take that coolness out of there. I think temperature-wise, color-wise, down here in this whole painting, before you can really move forward with the painting, I would adjust. I don't know if it's finished yet, but I would definitely warm up all of this down here. Here's where sometimes when the artist was working on a particular issue like this, that I don't know if it's an oil painting or acrylic, but it can be glazed. You can actually glaze warm tones into that and take that down a bit. But I think the challenge will be this. There's so much blue in the painting, blue, violet, that I want to see a little bit more warmth into the painting before you could really look at other things. But some of these tree areas are really nicely rendered in here. All that stuff is nicely rendered. I don't know if you need to dial in on all those railings so much there. It would kind of like make them go back and look at the Impressionists and see how they handle that stuff. They saw it, they just made a few indications, and then they kind of let some stuff just kind of break down into the space a little bit more. This, these little areas here like that, I wouldn't want to pull the eye over to that little spot. Even if that does exist in the real world, I have to make choices for the painting, right? I'm looking at this, just one more thing. This is actually a cool, I'm looking at this over here now. It's a cool little painting right there. That could be interesting in itself. And this could be another painting. I guess you can go all the way down. Well, I like that reflection in there. Yeah, so that could work there. I love the sky in the painting though, but you have some ideas in here that you could revisit again. I don't know if I would crop that necessarily like that. I kind of like the reflection of trees in there, so I would probably move that down, make it a little bit longer. But there's a lot of different possibilities. The weaker part of the painting is this here, kind of like just, it's not as defined as the other areas. I'm not so sure, this not supporting the rest as strongly as the rest of the work. But anyway, those are just some ideas. Okay, let's see. Oh, I see. Well, there you go. There you go. Look at how much warmer the greens are. And yeah, you have to infuse, for all of the artists today, one of my favorite things to do is infuse red, warm reds or oranges into the green. And ochres, mix them all in there, and they really neutralize those greens so they're not, so they don't become acidic or they don't get too blue like that. You know, you could definitely, this could take on a lot of like sienna, orange in the greens that you're mixing and warm it up. Okay, so yeah, there's another version of that. Okay, so this is Nancy's painting. I know her work. I actually watched her paint the last plein air convention outside. I sat with her, talked with her while she was painting. I think I was distracted. Are you here, Nancy? Is she here today? Oh, I can't hear anybody.
I'm sorry, I muted myself, and Nancy was here.
She is?
She was, yes.
She was. Anyway, yeah, I love this. She's always a very strong painter. It's got a great design in it. And this is a good example for the other painters. We're all trying to sharpen each other, right? I know I've been sharpened many times by other artists. Iron sharpens iron. So this is a good example. She really is telling the story. This is what this painting's about. It's about this morning or afternoon light on this porch. And I have these supporting trees here. Notice how she varies the trunks, just like I've been talking about. All this delineation in here, you know, it's all changing shapes. She uses that masterfully, really, really well. She really grasps the subject, got the point across, and it's graphically, just like I told you, it's a really good example of this painting hanging on a wall from across the room is going to draw you in, because the value structure is really strong and it's just all working. I really love it. I love, look at, she's thinking about the variation of the window treatments too. Look, none of them are the same. The doorway's the darkest part, right? But even the doorway is a little slightly off center. She's got everything working there. I don't know, I just love it. I like this little, if I was to do one thing to this painting, I would put a couple, maybe a couple more little light spots peeking through on the green a little bit. Just, that's on the bottom part, but it's a good example for everyone. Love this shadow. It's really good. I like to paint structures too, so I can really relate to this. But it's excellent. This is great. Reminds me of Wolf Kahn, the famous painter. I think he just passed away, but he's a really great painter, and he really pushed the palette to really areas that artists before him, I think they never went that far. This is kind of like really right on the edge. It's pushing. I like the way the shape has evolved here, and the design of it, the way that it flows around. I think the part where it gets a little weak is up here. It's not reading as well. And wait, is there was reference, right? Okay, so yeah, so that was my original thought when I looked at this. I saw the reference and I said, wow, this person can, Deborah, you can definitely take away more of that sky. The sky is not the story here at all. And some of this background should merge from the trees to the fence, the house structure and all that. And then you would have the light on this subject primarily. So I would go back and look at how that is. So this fence, it trends from this dark to the light, and then you have the slats in there. That's really important for the painting. This is a nice piece of reference to work from. And you can actually, if you squint your eyes, all of this shape merges, just drips down into the fence area. And there's dapple light on the fence here. And you could pump up that just like you see it. If you follow this a little bit more closely, you could bring out the best parts from that reference into your painting, because you started doing it, but then you didn't pump it enough where it needs to be. like the highlight on the lights on this could be a little bit higher, and the dapple light could be a little bit stronger. Dapple light for everyone works if you haven't dealt with it. It's a fuzzy ring, and then it has strong light in the middle of it. So let's look at that in the photo. You see it? So it's like a stronger light in the middle, and then it's fuzzy on the edges. That's the easiest way to make dapple light. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so when I saw this painting, I said, oh, wow, there is a Hopper painting that looks like this. And it was like, that's really cool. It looks like Hopper painting. He has not a painting, he did an etching where the figure is walking down the street like this. And it's a night scene. When I first saw this, I interpreted it as night, not day. So, Lori, this actually it feels to me like a night scene. Listen, okay. If it works, it works. It's a night scene now. Go with it. It looks like moonlight almost. But what if you wanted to make it more day? The indicator is the warmth that's going on up here, and then the green of the grass, because you wouldn't have any of that at night. So if you wanted to go that way, you'd have to play that up a little bit more. Figure-wise, it's a little bit the dog reads perfect, but the figure is a little bit, could use a little bit more modeling. I think it's a little bit condensed in the height, and it just needs a little bit. You could use the background to cut into it and make it a little bit leaner, so it'll look taller. Figure, not dense.
The figure should be taller. You said okay. The figure should be taller, Joe.
Yeah. Well, look. You see the figure in the photo. The legs are thinner, and it has like the figure's actually leaning back. Looks like she's trying to hold the dog back. There's a whole story there. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Like the dog's gonna go after somebody. Like this is a whole thing. But look, if you put this light, look at this shape up here. It's really wild. I mean, it's almost like a letter R. You put that in there, and those are kind of cool things to put in paintings sometimes. And this warmth, if you do that, and then you go back to the figure, when you're correcting paintings, it's not about correcting the figure anymore. You correct the back, use the background to correct it. So you could cut into it. What is this, an oil painting, acrylic? What is
oil painting.
Oh yeah, so you could go back in and use the surface color and cut into that figure and correct the drawing a little bit more with it.
Okay, yeah, I couldn't get that lean. Any advice on the twigs to make the tree more twiggy looking?
Well, that's where you have to squint your eyes. It's actually an entire mixture of color that's kind of variegated a little bit. And then when you squint, I'm squinting my eyes at the photo and I'm looking, you're going to have to pick out just a couple, almost like painting a sky, a couple dark parts, and then moderate darks. They vary. They go from really dark to moderate, and you're going to have to carefully pull them out. What if I was doing this particular painting? I would put down a moderate color like this zone here, like a gray, and then I would scratch into it with my palette knife or the back of my brush, the tip of my brush, the handle part. And okay. I do that a lot. I did that on one of my little paintings that I have here. I scratch into it sometimes because it's the shortcut to abbreviating that kind of story, like how to get that in there. But yeah, that's sort of some things you could do on that.
Oh, okay, thanks a lot.
This is Mary's painting. And the biggest thing here is if it's going to stay this way, I noticed that the treatment of these are the same. So when we look at the reference, we see, whoa, this one goes out almost like a dagger. It's like a needle, right? We don't have that. Oops. We don't have that in the painting. So we really want to bring that out to about here and then vary the other ones, you know, so that you can really go back in that space. And then this, when you squint your eyes way down, the sky and the end of this island or peninsula, whatever you have there, is it's basically really drifting off. And you can, like the Impressionists, what they do is like they take part of the sky and merge it into the tree line. And so this has to all fall back a lot further, if this is the tone you're looking for. Now, were you painting there from life too, or no?
Yes,
Okay,
it was 2 days ago. And it did change when I was there. It was very foggy when I first got there.
There you go. So you saw this rich color here, but this is really deep here. And what happens is we get tricked. So the best way to safeguard yourself from overstating an area is to constantly defocus and look at the whole painting. And then when you're looking at the whole painting, you'll realize, wait a minute, I'm reading too dark over here. Even if it changed a lot, I see that it could be darker, but it's probably, my best guess is it's not that dark, but I'm not there, so it's hard to do that. But yeah, vary these lines here, and certainly some of this stuff in the back can almost get merged into the sky. The clouds are really beautiful here though on this part, and I like the treatment in the foreground. Okay, so we have this reference, and I really like this, Karen. Is Karen here?
Yes.
Okay, hi Karen. Yeah, so this painting really worked, read really well. When I first looked at it, it's always the first impression. Is the painting holding up? Does it have a good graphic to it? Yes, it has all that going on. So what could we improve? So the wall in the foreground, you see this has variation. As it goes back in space, this has that, what I call the Sorolla light in there. His shadows always glow. So you have to look for that glow in the shadows. And I noticed when I looked at it last night, the perspective on this was flattened out. So you have this, you're showing too much roof on that, and it needs to be a lot slighter.
Right, yeah.
So that reads a little bit better, if we're following that exactly. As far as a design, it works really well. It reads really well. It's got a nice graphic, strong presentation of light and dark. These shadows could be looked at, revisited again. They need to be a little bit more, handled a little bit more delicate, I think. Let me see.
Too heavy, I think.
There's a little bit more variation in here. It's moderate shadow and then a little bit of dark in there. So you really got to look at this, and they fan out. So you have to soften that a little bit and really try to get that glow in this wall here. Lighten that rooftop. It's not as showy. It's not showing as much there.
So how do you get a glow?
You know, well, when I did that demo, one of the things I like to do is mix my moderate dark into a neutral color, and then you could shift that neutral color either more blue, more red, you know, more orangey, whatever you want. But get a base gray color, and then start to shift it. Either pull it more violet, more bluish, and you know, then you'll get that little glow light in there. And that's what, you know, Sorolla, like we showed, I don't know if I showed that before, but he was famous for that little bit of glowing light in all his in his paintings. Okay, so we have this. This is a good way to present it. It's easy. So in this painting, Jerry, you have yeah, when I first looked at this, I almost wished that the edit for the fifth tree, the fifth straggling tree, was still in there, because 5 is a good number. Odd numbers are really good. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, but you have 3 and 1. That's kind of nice. That works. But this initial reference is really nice with this thin one in here. And it reminds me of, oh God, I can't think of his name. John, the famous landscape painter. I'm drawing a blank. But anyway, so if you put that variation of that thinner tree in, which is easy to do, and you bring that dagger light down a little bit further, and you can make it thinner. You don't make it thinner by painting it thinner. You're never going to get that perfect. What you do is you just bring some of the other darker color up to it, and you can make it thinner, razor sharp. And you need to look at that. Even that split in the original reference of this tree on the left, these are nice little things to have in there, because your main statement is the contrast between the foreground and the background. So the more that you define those trees in the foreground with those little subtleties, will help enhance the background color. I mean, the whole background scene really well. You could probably, yeah, no, I mean, a lot of it is working well. But these spots, again, my eye goes to them because I'm trained for that now. After all these years, I go to very predictable spots. All these things are getting to be like the same size. So if I was working on this, I would want to change that. I would say, okay, I'm getting into a mode where I'm making everything too similar, the plant, vegetation. And if you look at the reference of the thing, it varies in the greens. There's different greens down there that are happening, and they're all playing off of each other, but there's variety. So you need more variety. In here, you have the unity already, but you need variety.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Now this painting, Rich, is really it's a very good painting. I love the strength of it. I love the structure, how it brings you in. And I love the story of, okay, I'm going through this. I want to see what's on the other side of the barn. My main critique is this side of the painting. The treatment here and the treatment here are too equal. So I would play this down a little bit. I mean, it's just a little too much. I'm struggling between the two lights. I'm going back and forth. I don't want to do that to my viewer. I want my viewer to see this, but not get stuck there or keep going back and forth to it. So I want my viewer to go through this door. I want them to go that way. Possibly even introduce a little bit of a dirt trail or something in the foreground here. And this is great. I mean, this is really great here. This gets a little flat here. I'm not sure about the read of it. Is there reference here? No. Okay, so this gets flat here, this wall. I need either to take that entire value down so that there's no light on this, because this is really not this is more of a distraction when it gets flat and it looks odd like that. So I probably would take that value, this red, a little bit less, the intensity, dial it down and make it more neutral and quieter there. This is really beautiful though. There are actually, again, this is let me see. Well, it could be, this painting is worth just correcting some of those things, but there's another chance to do more paintings from the same idea. Like you can just actually have almost a very, look at that by itself. It's beautiful. You can actually do that. This could be a whole painting right by itself, right there, the cutoff. Just a little bit of this. Without that, put your thumb over that window, everybody. Your thumb over that window and look at the painting now. You see now the strength goes to the side, and that's where the conflict is a little bit, right? But I love the light on this ground, the grass that's in there, the way it red, it's beautiful. There's a lot of nice things about it.
Kind of like the, can you hear me, Joe?
Yes.
I like the repetition, that green that you were just talking about was actually coming through holes in the barn, so you were seeing through that.
Yeah.
I like the repetition of that, and in the other barn you have that grayish light too.
Right.
But you're right. I downplayed the window on the left.
Yeah.
How I tried to diffuse it so that it wasn't as sharp and it didn't draw the focus, because I agree with you. It was taking interest away from where I wanted the eye to go.
Right.
The main thing, and this is like one of those abandoned barns that you were talking about, the whole farm, the main structure burned down.
Right.
I could go there and do 10 paintings just turning around, right?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to eliminate that window because I just love that backlight.
I love it.
But again, like you were saying, I didn't want it to be too distracting. So maybe, do you think I should reduce the intensity of the light coming through there?
I think, yeah, well, that's what I was getting at. But I think, oh, wait, let me shut this thing off. Okay, so this green down here, if you brought that up and just made it like there's just green trees or something, but this light back there, you might want to go that way, or there's a darker value. Oh, shoot. There's a darker value in here. You might want to play around with both of that, like make some of this on the top part and make this a little bit lower key on the bottom part of it. But don't go too, it's a very subtle thing, because if you go too far, you're also going to kill that beauty in it. It's beautiful the way it is, actually. But I'm conflicted a little bit because they're both great. The openings are both great, but it's like I'm torn between the two, so I don't want that to happen. So I naturally would probably say this looks like the natural path for the person to go through. So I'm going to play this down just a little bit.
Okay. Do you feel like
Excuse me, Joe, you've got in 35 minutes, you've got 12 more paintings.
Okay. All right.
All right. Thanks, Joe.
Okay. So this is the common fix here, is that we need more atmospheric perspective. And if you know what that means, then you're going to cool this down. This has to fall back. This river or stream flow is, again, too predictable, the same width of it, the same size. And this is also the same size. So this has to be looked at a little bit more closely. The sky is reading good. A lot of the skies today are painted really well. The light holes in the trees are good, but I would vary this waterway somewhat, and I would send this tree line back. And then from there, I think you have a much shorter painting. You could probably crop, if you wanted to, down on this painting again if you were revisiting it as well.
Okay. Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome. This painting I really fell in love with. I mean, this painting to me is like something I would do. It has all the bells and whistles in it. It has everything going on. I just love the structure. I love the chunkiness of this painting. It's really successful. One of the big things, this is good for, we learn from other people naturally. So, I mean, it's the best lesson, actually, to have these critiques, because we learn from other people's work. These windows, I don't know what it actually is going on there in real life, but it looks like a screen, and it looks like this gray screen. And I've seen that light before in the shadow on screens and it looks just really good like that. The only thing I would add to this is, you see this little delineation in the foreground on this particular plant, Errol, that I would just accent a couple more spots in the foreground of real dark darks. Just look very carefully and just pick out a couple there, but otherwise it's a home run. I love the painting. I love the sky, everything about it. It's really cool.
Thanks. Thank you, Joe. Thank you.
Great painting.
Errol is one of our other guest artists, and I think of him as our guest artist emeritus. He's always works with us.
That's because I'm an old guy, Mary. Okay, thank you, Joe.
Thank you. All right, so I did see this painting. I love this painting. Is quite interesting, and Peter Brown, Pete the Street in England. I don't know if you guys follow him, but he does a lot of street scenes like this, and it reminded me of his work. He does a lot of street scenes. Look him up. He's really good. He's on Instagram. He's big time on there. But anyway, I fell in love with this top part, this steeple dome thing. That is just knocked out, man. That is so good. This part is so well painted. And the only thing I had a problem with, Virginia, is the reading of this figure. I'm not so sure. It's when I get up by the head and the shoulders, the head here, I'm not so sure what's going on there. I can't read it right. That's a little head and a hat and then a light behind them.
That's the blonde hair. But yeah, and there's also the light over the doorway behind them. And I was thinking I should probably just have the head covering that light. But
yeah. You have to deal with that because this is reading very odd. So you cut down this light and just leave a shimmer on the head, like on the side light of the face, just like you did with the dog. Mm-hmm. And the three legs, I mean the four legs. I'm getting tired. the four legs on the dog, they're too predictable and they don't look all natural, so that you got to vary that. And they're probably you could play down this light a little, even make it a little bit slighter, keep the glow though. It's really great. This goes beautiful back in space. I love everything about that, but I would just work on this area because this is the big focus.
So does the pine tree bug you, and is the big, huge building with all those windows too busy?
You know, if you play down the reflection, I get what's going on here, and I've seen it in the past myself. We all have that imagery, memory, visual memory, but just you could try cutting down the reflection in the window a little bit, so that it's not so bright. This does not bother me at all. The light is beautiful in the tree render. It's a little bit predictable, like we've been talking about all morning here, all afternoon. It's predictable, so you got to watch that. And the shadows are a little bit too similar. So you got to look at those little nuances, but your painting is going in the right direction.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, now this painting is a good example of, okay, so where is the focus? So we have to make a decision here. Yolanda? You have either it's that fruit tree or the flower or the building, but it's too similar, the treatment everywhere. So and then you have the chair, which is in there. So I need to, if I was painting, I would say, well, what do I really want to bring out in this painting? Is it the story about the chair? Well, then the chair's got to be really, much more defined or delineated. Or is it about this fruit tree or the flower? I really have to figure that out, and then I go back and do it again. It's also good for you to study more about perspective, because here the painting drops off a bit with you have everything working up here, but then when you got down here, it looked like you were struggling with the angle, and you need to go and keep working on that perspective stuff, because this line would go a little bit higher here. It's going to open up even more so that that window, the closest window, is going to even be a little bit bigger. But those little things you can look at. I'm going to just keep going, and maybe we could circle back if we have time. I don't know. This I looked at as the reference, and I looked at it, and first I didn't see the photo, so then I thought, well, this is wait a minute, this is water. And then when I looked at it, it wasn't water, right? It's stone. So this is a totally different field than the way that I originally saw it. I thought this was water flowing, and there was actually some kind of hole, water hole or something, where the water was flowing here. So we need to figure out how we're gonna get that stone look in there. It's very neutral color. And then this whole part, this is the hardest thing for so many artists, is that you have to find that, like, there's like an ochre, warmer shadow color. We need to delineate a little bit more further in there and really find the proper temperature of the color. But it's nice rendering, but it just got a little bit confusing on the read, I should say. Okay, so this painting really works. It's really strong. The way that the atmosphere feels, you nailed it, Cynthia, you nailed it. But the building got a little bit flat here. It's just the front of this building needs an angle. It's just flattening out a little bit. They all read well. The two things that I saw when I first looked at it were the perspective here of this pole and this pole being the same thickness. All those little things matter. This pole and this pole cannot be the same thickness if this is further back in space. So you probably have to make this one thicker. And then on the bottom part, with the way that the lines are in the snow from the cars, you probably have to, you have 3 lines that are equal treatment. They have to vary. This has been repetitive in a lot of the things that we're seeing today in these paintings. You have to really watch, because we get in a similar mode. They have to vary. They have to go light, dark, or whatever, and vary the weight, and just not be the same treatment here, because it's a little bit, again, predictable. It doesn't look like, but this part, the pine tree and the rocks, are really beautiful. This has a really nice feel going back in the space. The only part that gets you into a little bit of a fix is that this flattens out here, this light path. I would bring either more grass up or bring that dark down and show less back there, because that's going to help make this drama of going back in space even increase, that this is a sliver of the yellow going back, way back into space. That part. You have good atmospheric perspective behind this tree, and the figures are reading nice. I'm not so sure how that red part, what it exactly is. It's a little abstract for me. I almost would take that out and just continue this other figure straight down, because it's just reading oddly. And again, the shadows on the ground, they need to be looked at and worked on a little bit better. They can't just be kind of like indicated in these solid forms like this. They usually vary it greatly. Okay, I didn't see this one last night, so it must have been a new entry. This has really nice feel to it, Richard, and it's going back in space really nice. Well, yeah, I like the way that is. I would just subtly, very subtly lighten that a slightly lighter value, just a little bit more here, because I want the separation between these figures, the dark in the figures in the foreground and this to be a little bit further apart, but keep it on the darker side. Don't change it to the light, but just subtly, just lighten that stuff up a little bit so it goes back further in space. Even behind this head, you can pull out these figures a little bit more by lightening up this dark spot back here. Just because you have the reference that reads a certain way, don't follow it all to the T. Make it work for the painting. But this is a really nice composition. And I love the multi-figures in it. It's not easy to do. It's a really good job. Okay, this looks like an outside bar or something. And then Mary.
That's what it is.
Yes, it is an outside bar.
Yeah, so that read right away from me. And I just want a little bit more of hone in on that perspective back here. Like I would draw a line back here so that this would narrow down and you'd reshape this so that you started doing it on the bottom part, but you didn't do it so much on the top part. So you could draw this line down here, the top counter, and then make that other side of the counter come out like on an angle like that. It'll definitely make that work better. For the cars, when you're painting the cars, you got to really look at, see the best way to break them down, abbreviate them abstractly, but this looks a little too cartoonish. So you want to probably go back and revisit that, the way that the darks and the lights are reading on the car. And, you know, you don't naturally don't want bright highlights or brighter lights in there where it's going to make it look funky. So you got to be careful with that. Abstractly, it reads really well, the light and dark space of it. I don't know if you need this napkin here. It's the light. I would like to see, this is really cool, all this stuff. So it should read a little bit more separation, a little bit brighter light back here so that all of this is separated from that. But the perspective is the big thing here.
Thank you.
Okay, so I've been in Chicago many times, so I know where this is, and it's a cool scene, but let me just interpret it a little bit. I didn't see it. It was loaded up later, I guess. So I really love this painting, and I love everything about the way it's working, the figures and everything. I don't think this part works for the painting. I think this tone can carry over to this. Even if you saw it like that, it's not helping the painting. This light over here is beautiful. So I would just kind of leave a little bit light leading up to this. And this is really beautifully done, this part. So I would play this down. That's my biggest gripe with this painting, is this spot here. I would just make it this tone, all of that. You don't need that up there. It's distracting. But otherwise, the painting has, if I squint my eyes, it really goes back in space really, really well. Good job. Oh my, love that. Yeah, that's cool. Again, you know, we see everything. I remember seeing this scene even myself. We see all the possibilities in these city scenes. And then and the interpretation of light here is really good and everything. I think this is a nice little sketch. Is this a small painting, Max? How big is it?
I don't think he's on.
Yeah, that's nice. That's a really nice painting. I know that this artist is standing on the bridge or something with a wall. So the choice of the blue color here probably want to warm it up like this. I would put a warm wash over this to separate it from this water, because I think the blue in the foreground read is odd. I want that blue to be back here, and this is where this gets a little funky too. This is too warm for me. You can actually put a cool wash over this and warm wash over this, and I think you got it. That's a nice little painting there. Okay, so now again, the tree discussion has been a big topic today. And listen, it's something we all got to work on. So drawing. When I first went outside, especially this time of year is spring, before gets too filled up with the leaves and stuff, just look at the structure and draw the trees. Actually, just do paintings of little trees and tree trunks and branches, how they go, and just focus on that part so you can get that skill down, so that when you come to a scene like this, you could paint it much better, because this is definitely, is painted very quick, and the ability of delineation has to be gained here, the way that it has to be modeled, the tree there. I love this spot in the painting that reads really well. And then I'm not so sure about the values here, because if I'm looking at it, this part of the wall maybe could be darker, because a good thing to do in paintings is go from, I'll show you, light, dark, light, dark. So this should be dark again. If you do that as a rhythm in the painting, it reads really well. You see, I have this dark here, light, dark, light, dark. So we don't need light over here. Even if it was there, I would make it dark. And the shadows are nice where the trees are. Like, they read right the value, but the tree work needs to be improved.
I think that's it.
That's it.
You did it. Thank you.
Do we have time to show the trees?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Now, how do I do that? I got to stop sharing?
Yep, stop sharing and reload.
Okay. So wait, where do I share again?
So it should be up probably at the bottom, actually. Share screen.
Oh yeah, there it is. Okay, now I just want to share my regular screen and not the ones I pulled up.
Your regular screen, what's on your, you're going to have to open it again? Is that what you mean?
Where I just close this.
You have to have it open and then, got it?
Wait, let me open this one.
Okay.
Because I could show it in here actually.
And then, yeah, double click on it like you did before.
Now, do you see that?
Only do it, you might try it again. You did something else last time to make it larger.
Yeah, I don't know how I did that.
We see a little bit larger one over on the right. So did you need to click on that one?
Okay. Oh, okay. So, okay, so you see that, right?
Yep.
Full screen?
Yep.
Okay, here, this is good for everyone because we got to go over these tree things. Here's the trees that I did for my Plein Air magazine article. So this is the scene I saw. And then I take old paintings that are crappy and then I paint over them sometimes. It gives me a lot of courage. So I take that and I make this very abstract scene, block in for that tree area. See it? And then I'm going to advance it for you. So then I start to put in some of the indication where the trees will be. This is my moderate dark, my moderate light, like we talked about. There's no accent dark and accent light yet. Well, there is accent light because of the sky, but it's not a small delineation of it yet. And then I advance it. So then I get my darks so that I can render the tree. But you see how uniquely different all of these weights are and the tones are different. You guys have to be aware of that. And then I model more. I pull out more of the tree. So I'm getting the darks around it. And I'm really delineating that, right? And then I bring in some of the lights. And then I got some of this improved in the light area because the dark's by it. Everything is by association. When you put a color down, it's by the other color next to it. But look at all these different variations of mark making that it takes to make a tree, right? And then this will be good because it'll be on your video thing, but then your tape. And so then I move it from there to here, see? From there to here. And I really start to define the edges of the tree, right? And then I keep going. So then I get now the bottom was not really defined. The tree, I'm gonna put the grass in. See, now I'm starting to put the grass in and all these light holes that are coming in the sky. And then I get to this point. So this part is the end part. So you could see all the variation. None of these have the same treatment. They're all different. They're all drawn carefully with the brush. You guys have to work on that. It took me some years to do it. I'm not going to say it's an easy thing, but you have to look at the bark here. It's different than here. They're all different. They're all different treatments. So you have to really pay attention to that. And that's what makes it look alive, you know, or dead. It was two dead trees, but it really makes it look natural, I should say. Like, look at it in that stage where everything's blocked in, but there's not all the detail. It's just a nice stage to look at it. Look at it all in there. Any questions?
Here, let me unmute. Why don't you unmute yourself if you have a question? Anyone?
Yeah, you mentioned earlier something about dragging the end of your brush or a palette knife into your painting. And I think you were talking about branches at that point.
Yeah.
So that instead of trying to draw them, you're breaking them up with the bottom of your or the edge of a brush or something. You're doing something different, like either with a palette knife or the bottom of your brush.
Well, you have to have round brushes, preferably for this treatment here. I had watercolor brushes for oil painting, and like a number 6 round, number 8 round, they have a little bit of a point to them. You don't want your best brushes because you're using them for oil. So, but what you want to do is you want to get your paint a little bit more fluid, and then once, like I blocked in the sky color. So now on top of that, I'm going to drag my tone one way. You don't get, it's not like the end of the world if you don't get it right, but you don't get a second chance at these marks. They're one-way strokes, and you make them. And if you like them, you leave them. If you don't, you take them out again. But it's one path, and that's it. And you vary it in your touch even. Like this was heavy, and then it goes to light, very faint. But it's one way. If you keep going over it, they're going to get stiff. They're going to look very unnatural. So you're dragging the brush outward from the trunk. That's what I did here. I'm dragging some of these out from the trunk with a dark fluid color over the more thick paint. And you can do it. You just got to get the knack for it. And you basically drag them out from it. And like I said, no second chances. You don't go back over it because it gets really ugly then. It gets stiff and cumbersome, and the whole other thing starts following it. Then you're not happy with it, right? So it takes a while to learn it, but look at how these darks are against the lights in critical areas to pull out the tree. That's really important, right? And then some of the other areas are just let go, a big silhouette of trees behind there. You don't really know what kind of trees they are. They're just big trees, but they're helping form this two dead trees together, the intertwine of these trees.
Thanks.
I love that tip about using the watercolor brush, because they actually do have a little bit longer center to them. Is that right with the?
Yeah. And if you hold it like people do with like the Asian way of doing lettering, if you hold the brush like this, I wish I had one here. I don't have a pencil or anything. But wait. If you hold the brush like this and you drag away from the trunk.
We need to see you.
If you drag away from the trunk, like this is the tip of the brush.
We need to see you.
Oh, you can't see
Here,
it?
let me, yep. No, here, we can, hold on a second. I can just, I just need to spotlight you. Actually, you need to stop sharing. If you would, just for a second. Now do it.
Okay. Anyway, oh, there. Actually, we'll leave it like that because I could show you another painting. You want to, like, here's your tree trunk here. Let me say like this. And you want to drag away from the trunk. You want to drag away from the trunk. You have your loaded brush. This is the tip of the brush. So you're going to drag away like that. And it's, like I said, it's one path, one way. Let me show you another. Now, that's what I wanted, Mary, was this kind of screen. Here's Jersey pines. So you see what's going on? You see, like, none of it is predictable, right? It's all like nature. It's very, I don't know if I bring it up close, you can see, right? Yeah, you can see some of that.
Yes.
Look at all those different marks, right? So, you know, this was done in like an hour and a half, right out there in the scene. And I try to get that really, that light striking it in such a, let me see if the light's gonna help it. I don't know. Is that good?
Not really.
Worse?
There, if you put it toward us a little bit. Just there, yeah, the top done, there.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
I have another one. This is the one I was talking about, that quick sketch.
The light is too hot, yeah.
Yeah, this is the one where I was finishing my workshop for the day, and out in the back of the school in Virginia was this beautiful tree, and the light was hitting it. It's probably not getting the warmth that it was really shown in the painting, but it's just a shed, and this old tree with all that character. And it's the same kind of thing. Look at all those areas where the darks are defining the trunk, right? To pull it out. But there's a lot of variation in here. You see it?
How do you keep from getting it too busy? I mean, that seems to be one of the other things that we often hear.
Well, you look for the main, you look for the things that really will give you the character of the tree, and then don't go overboard. You have to, it's a learned thing. You're not going to get it right away, but you basically try to get the most important main branches in, and then you put your, some of the other branches in. Here's another one that was done in Pennsylvania. It's backwards. It's odd looking at them backwards, but it had the nice shadow falling on the house, and that little stone wall in the front. But you get that variation, and when you get to those very complex areas where there's a lot of little branches, see how I just squint my eyes and I pick out some of the darks? That's what you have to do. It takes a while, but you got to train your eye that way. I hope that helped.
This is great. Somebody, as they were leaving, just said that they really thought this was great and they'd like to hear from you again. So I think this is terrific. Anybody else have a question? We have just another minute or so, a couple minutes.
Yes, this is Liz Gear. I had a question. So for those of us who you suggested we should maybe, look at the picture in a different way and rework it. If we do that, can we email them to you for comments?
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have, Mary, can you send Joe's email if we don't have it? Or?
I can do that. I'll when I send out something on in the next day or so, I will give you contact information.
Okay, great, thanks. This was very useful. It's sort of learn a lot from these sessions.
Thank you. Anybody else have a question?
Mary, are we going to be able to replay this on our?
Yes, I am going to send out it is recording, and I'll send out the link to it.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Yeah, I have a question about the tree, the comment that you made about, where in my painting where there was no end to it, there was no bottom or.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was, there actually is, but it's at the very edge of the painting. But I appreciate that comment because, as I was painting, just looking at all the trees in the area, I got carried away, and I think I painted more at the top. So I think if I had just taken off, stopped at the top, that would have made a better painting, I'm just saying. And then, because the ones that you have, or even other paintings, the branches go off of the page, but the bottom is showing. So
Yeah,
I think
you need one. You can't have. Well, I'm not saying I don't want to make up fixed rules, but it is better if you have an odd number of things breaking the edge, leaving the painting.
Right, and so I just never considered that. I need, because it's just, the branches are all over. So, and then I knew that, but I appreciate that comment.
Thank you, Joe. Hi, I just want to say I teach college level drawing, and I just want to say I've learned a lot of things from you today. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. I appreciate that comment.
Yes, at this point, we're getting in the chat just all kinds of thank yous. Excellent critique. This was great. Fabulous. He was great. Got to hear from him more. So, Joe, I hope we can get you back sometime that, your family will let you have that room again. And
yeah, we'll be back again. Hey, this thing might go on and on, so I'll see you again.
Actually, everybody, I was talking with Joe earlier this week when we were kind of testing all this, and we were thinking that we might even do a class with Joe that would maybe for a 3-hour class or something over Zoom. But if that would be something that would be of value to you, I will. Okay, I will make sure that I'll of course, I'll do an evaluation. So. I'll ask that question about if you'd be interested, and I'm assuming that there would be a cost because I think it's time to remunerate people that are spending this kind of time with us, but it won't be a terrible cost, but we'll just figure out something. But so anyway, that's the story on that Joe, we hope to have you back both as a guest artist like this, but also potentially as a class.
That would be wonderful.
Okay. Maybe we can figure out a better, I could talk to my brother and we could figure out a better camera to the computer.
Yeah, I think we can figure that out. And there are a couple of people I think that are considering that. So we'll try to help you with that as well. Okay. Any other questions? No. All right, everybody. So thank you very much. Let me tell you that next week we have Christina Bodie will be our guest artist next week. You know that she helped start this group with Scott. I think what we'll ask you to do when you're putting in your pictures next time, please make sure that you will list what the medium is, what the size, and what the location is. That would be helpful, I think, for people to know. And we're going to ask you just to put in one photo, not the reference photo. So, but that's, I'll put all that in writing for you. So everybody, thank you so much, and give me any feedback. And Joe, thank you from everyone that's here. This has been a terrific day with you.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you. Happy Easter, everybody.
Happy Easter.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very, very much.
Good weekend, everybody. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great weekend.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, Mary.
Bye.
Yeah, you're welcome. And Joe, that was terrific.
Thank you.
So, And I will talk to you soon.
Okay.
Okay, y'all set?
Everybody be safe.
Yeah, be safe is exactly right. Bye. Bye, Junior. Okay.
Bye.
Bye.